if you're the victim of a crime, you have a number of services available to you. Now, they are services that can help you both financially and emotionally through this tough time. Here to talk to us in studio today is about victim rights is our very own criminology expert, John Paitakes of Seton Hall University. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, John, what are some of the core rights for victims of crimes?
All right, victims have a certain number of core rights. They have the right to be informed of the charges specifically, of the court dates. They have the right to be given a list of services that will be available to them. They have the right to a speedy trial, which means that we may try and prioritize their case to make it as convenient as possible. They have the right to restitution, financial reimbursement for any damages that were done to them. They can also apply to a state victims crime compensation office for additional funding. And they have the right to be protected against any intimidation or threats.
Now, we are on the cusp of National Crime Victims Week.
Right.
Obviously, we want to get the word out to people who've been crime victims that they do have an expanded number of rights out there. This goes beyond just making a statement at sentencing.
Yes, April 22nd to the 28th is National Crime Victims Week, so it's recognized nationally, and really with criminal justice agencies and volunteers are hosting a series of seminars for the public in general. And in addition to just the crime victims, unfortunately anybody can either witness a crime or be a victim of a crime, so we want to get the word out as to what your rights are, procedures, agencies, etc. So there'll be a big emphasis coming up on that soon.
Perhaps, oh, go ahead.
No, thank you. Now, how much input do victims of crimes have in the criminal justice system? Is it a ton or just a little? Can they really make a difference?
Well, there's three different opportunities that crime victims can have input. After somebody's found guilty in a criminal court, before they're given the actual sentence, a probation investigator has to do a background report. So they can provide what they call a victim impact statement. What effect has this crime had on you, and how do you feel you can be restored to your previous procedure, financially, emotionally, etc. Okay, then when it comes time to sentencing, in the more serious cases in most states, and you may see this on TV periodically, the victim can get up and testify before sentencing to the judge and say, this is what's happened to me. I want to feel safe. I hope the court takes it into consideration. So again, additional statements. All right, now let's assume that the person goes to prison, okay? Before the person's released from prison, they come up for parole. They have the right to either meet with one of the parole board members or sometime in some states appear before the parole board to say, again, give their statements as further input for the parole board members, okay? Now, what final effect that will have will obviously depend on the sentencing judge or the parole board members, but it is another way to have input into the system. So there's three distinct areas where they can have input.
Are these new developments, or these things that...
No, actually a lot of this came about in the last 30 years. All right, under the Reagan administration, he created a task force to look into crime victims' rights. So in the past 30 years, a lot of this has been instituted, and pretty much every state now follows these general guidelines.
We saw in Los Angeles, as I worked there years ago, that there was a big push for the protection of, especially in gang-related cases,
right,
protection of witnesses and people who had been victims. Because what was happening is the people on the inside were alerting people on the outside to take retribution against witnesses,
right,
and in some cases the victims. And the Los Angeles County Prosecutor's Office did a lot along with the state to boost the protection of these people. And I just wonder if that was part of the springboard or if it's part of a national effort that we're seeing.
Good question.
Yeah, good question. And because a lot of that happens even in New Jersey recently, something like that similar happened, and in many other states. But yeah, they can offer police protection. They can even actually relocate people in very serious threats or whatever. They can relocate them. Obviously, the victim has to be in agreement to be relocated or protected or whatever, but there's federal money and state money, depending on the state, that could be available for that. But yeah, and that is one of their rights.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm kind of curious about the compensation fund. Who makes those decisions about the compensation, and where does the money come from?
All right, there's two ways they can get compensated. Restitution is payback for damage done to your house. Let's say somebody breaks into your house and you give a financial statement, et cetera. But in addition to that, let's say you had medical costs or God forbid, funeral costs or whatever, you can apply. In New Jersey, they have what they call the Victims Crime Compensation Board, and most states have something similar. That money comes from the person who was found guilty. For example, in New Jersey, it's $100 per count of the complaint. If you're found guilty, that goes into this treasury for victims of crime. All right, so the perpetrator himself indirectly is contributing something.
Okay, so it's a pool.
It's a pool of money, and you probably will not get all that you ask for, but you'll get a percentage because there's so many victims. So that's generally how that fund works, you know. And again, it just provides some other means, you know.
And the courts make the decision? Is that how?
Well, when the person's found guilty, it's a mandatory statute in this state that you're all of a sudden assessed $100, and that's one of the first things that has to be paid. As a defendant, if you're found guilty, there's court costs, there's fines, there may be supervision fees, but that victim's crime thing is the #1 priority that we try and collect in this state. Now, again, the mechanism can vary a little bit from state to state, but most states will have some fund like that, you know, that's contributed partially by, you know, the person who did the crime.
If you're a crime victim, where do you go for assistance?
All right. Every prosecutor's office has a crime victim advocacy office. All right. Now that staff may be 4 or 5 individuals who they're like criminal justice counselors, and their whole purpose is to make the system as user-friendly for you, the victim, because we want you to sign the complaint, to make the identification, to testify in court. And if we don't make the system user-friendly, then people may not do that. Then the person gets away with a crime, and there may be more victims. So their whole goal is to make that as user-friendly as possible, walk you through the system, transport you to court if you need transportation, explain every detail of the court process. So they're victim witness counselors, actually.
Well, thank you, John. Very important
right.
information and good for all of us to know.
Good. Thank you.